Wow.
All right.
Second
Welcome.
watch.
Welcome back to the second watch, everyone, where Gary and I waste the wee hours of a Friday evening, Saturday morning discussing all things RPG. Gary, what's up?
Not a lot, man. It's been a long day. It's been
Tell
a
me about
long
it.
week. You
Yep.
look a little rough.
Ugh.
So I'm going to do my best not to anger you this evening, Mr. 3 hours of sleep going on liquid coffee. But real quick, did you game this week?
Well, you know the answer to that.
I do know the answer.
We had the row, yeah, and I feel like things are moving in the right direction. Like,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
actually I was really happy with last night. I took your advice and said, "What are y'all gonna do?" And I sat back, and you guys spent a lot of time. There was a lot of planning, which was nice. Yeah, no, it was great. It's kind of turned around. I think at some point last night, you guys kind of had like the last bit of the clues. Like everything's there for y'all to figure out. You know what I mean? And at this point, I can just I've got two sort of events like for this part of the game. Like there are two things I know are going to happen. It's just a matter of when are you going to, flip the trigger. You know what I mean? Like
oh
when
yeah,
is that going to happen?
yeah, I know we have a much broader, more profound topic to discuss. And dear
Yeah.
viewers, this is all Gary. Gary's got a bug, a
Oh,
bee in his bonnet.
should we go? Should we
I wanted
start?
to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk a little bit about this too, about just kind of touch upon metagaming a little bit because I sometimes allow a little bit of it. And Brian James, who's here, hey man, what's up? He knows in my Temple of Elemental Evil game, I let the players talk to each other to figure stuff out. You know, even if it's a little out of character, especially if it's like an OSR game and you're doing the dungeon crawl thing. So I think that helps move the game along a little bit. And while we weren't out of character per se, there was definitely a lot of like, I know what your character knows, my character might not know it, but hey, wink wink, nudge nudge, let's have a talk
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah.
I think it really helped kind of get things going, especially considering we're doing this online. We're not in person. So
It is. The only thing I really felt bad about is I don't think that Vendetta even had a moment,
yeah.
last night. But that's all right. I mean, he didn't seem upset. I think he understood what was going on. Um, and I think, that you guys have kind of hit that point where you will be moving yourselves into danger, very quickly. And we're going to have all kinds of time for fights. I don't know if you noticed that villain that made his first appearance briefly last
Yeah.
night was quite a bit stronger than anything y'all had come up
Oh yeah.
against
Yeah.
before. That is completely a reaction to you guys taking out minions and bad guys I thought were going to be bad. Like I thought,
Right.
oh, this is going to, but no. So anyway, there was something else. I want to get into West Marches, but there was something else that you had said you wanted to bring up, or am I mistaken?
Oh no, real quick. I just wanted to do some quick news updates, and I won't belabor it because everyone wants to talk about West Marches.
Word.
I just want to know: Gods of the Forbidden North Kickstarter ended yesterday. They hit 167,000. You got a sound
Sorry.
effect there.
You about to get a little music. I decided against it.
We have Rob was our first guest. He's a great guy. I've known him for a couple years now, and I just wanted to say congratulations, man. I know how important that Kickstarter was, and that's very good. So
be proud of yourself, Rob. You've done a really great job.
yeah.
So.
And then I just want to also note next week is going to be a very long Friday night for yours truly, because I will be on the Legion of Myth live stream prior to this one. And we're going to be on the topic of heroic campaigns versus dark and gritty campaigns. Mr. Max Boivin will be there as well. I don't know who the third panelist is going to be, but check that out. There's a reason why we call this the second watch. It's because we don't want to mess up what Max Liao is doing. I think what he's doing is fantastic for the hobby. They're a little bit more structured compared to what Gary and I are trying to do, a little bit more organic conversation. But I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you guys check that out. And then I just want to note for those of you who are fans of the Red Room, please, 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 if you've purchased anything on lulu.com, go there and leave a rating and a review. It'll help bring the Red Room some exposure on Lulu. Lulu does not function like Drive-Thru RPG, and it'll help that company out a lot, and I would appreciate it. So yeah, but anyway, let's talk West Marches. Gary, what's
West Marches? Okay. A little background. So a while back, you and I, well, actually, a few times now, I think over the past year, maybe more, I don't know, we have talked about running some sort of Living World West Marches style campaign. And for whatever reason, other things have come up. We've never really done it. We've realized sort of the time involved and what that would entail. But we said something happened not too long ago that really put a bug up my ass, and I couldn't really let the idea go. You know how sometimes that happens? Something just gets stuck in your head and the hamster wheel just keeps turning until you have to start doing things. So I decided, you know what? Things are about to get really heavy and philosophical. Not really, but I spent a lot of time doing research. I was writing things out. I was listening to all these people talk about West Marches and best practices and how you should do this and how you should do that. And then we talked with Griff a couple weeks ago, who really changed my perspective on a couple things. And we're going to use all the terminology. We're going to, talk about all the things. But in the end, I'm going to run an OSC game in my world. And it will be on a certain time scale. And if you guys want to play, we'll make some time. I mean, that's kind of what it was. Griff, the one thing that just stuck with me was him saying, just play your game, or it's my game. It's my dungeon. So that's what we're going to do. However, because, we live in the times we do, there's a language that we all speak together, and there's questions that are going to be asked. And before I started researching, I don't think I understood what an undertaking this could be. So, where is the best place to start? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I guess we can start with what is a West Marches campaign. Everybody watching this knows, but just in case you typed in West Marches to YouTube, you're trying to get information. A West Marches campaign, it's essentially a campaign run by a dungeon master or several dungeon masters where large groups of people play. They have multiple characters. There is a timeline. It's on one-to-one time. There's a lot of aspects to it, but imagine it's sort of like a tabletop MMO in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, that's a fair. Can I interject?
You anytime you want. It's our show.
Yeah. Well, you're on a roll, man, and I don't want to interrupt you. What the way the West Marches started, and I just put a link in, and I'll probably drop the link to the original blog post from what was it called? Ars Ludi. It's from like 10, 15 years ago. But during third edition days, but apparently this guy, he was a pretty good game master, pretty popular, and he had like 14 to 16 players or something. And obviously he can't handle all at once. So he came up with this idea. And the concept was to kind of, I'm going to use the term funnel, but I know that's kind of a loaded word, especially in light of DCC, but the idea is to kind of keep players focused on exploration and not getting involved in like weird RPG-esque plots. So the idea is everything to the east It was civilized lands. There is no adventuring to be had, but everything to the west was wild and untouched, and
Well,
that's where
I don't
you
know
could
that's
go.
completely accurate because as I have been reading, what I have found is, and maybe that was exactly the way it was in his game, and I
Yeah,
don't. That is
that's what he
exact.
did.
But if we go back to before this had a name as West Marches, when it was just your campaign. And when we say campaign, we need everybody to understand that in this type of game, a campaign is not your character, it's not your character's story arc. The campaign is the setting.
Yep.
You are a player, you have multiple characters, you are playing the setting. It is much more focused on the game aspect than the story aspect, right? Where was I going with that? Help me
I
out, Matt. Well,
I think you were saying that it doesn't need you were going to go to it doesn't need to be limited to the west or
yeah,
the
it doesn't need
north
to
or
be
whatever.
limited to the West
But
because
yeah,
the way it essentially works is that nothing happens in town. Town is safe.
yep, yeah,
And every session starts with you in town. You're getting your party together, you're hiring retainers, you are traveling to the dungeon or you are exploring. And before the session is over, you are making your way back to town where it is safe and nothing will happen. Right?
right,
So if that's the case, you can do the sort of keep on the Borderlands model where there's this one side you explore, but there's nothing this way. But there's nothing stopping you at all from using a traditional map, having a safe city, building out the danger around it, and then having like a second town or, something of that nature. And I've seen that done quite a bit. Like as you level up and you're exploring more, you'll find other safe places where you can hole up other than your starting base. But then I've read things where you put so much stuff around your starting area that you never really get out of it. Like that
right.
will wind up being your campaign. So, um, there are 9 rules that and I forget his name, but the original West Marches guy gave his players, and I have them written down here. And I didn't send them to you, Matt, because I actually stole them off of a dungeon craft video.
Okay,
Cyrus, no, there's no bad guys in town. Town is safe. Nothing happens in
yeah,
town. Town
yeah.
is
It's like
boring, and that's why you leave.
yeah, it's essentially your keep on the Borderlands. You just go there to resupply, heal up, rest up, and then you're back out heading towards whatever rumor you've picked up, or well, we're going to get in more detail because what's cool about this is sometimes the rumors aren't generated by the game master. The rumors are generated by what the players have found, and when they come back to
Right.
the safe spot, they'll say something, and everyone's like, "Ooh, we want to see what's out there."
Yep. So on this list of 9 rules, we need to go through them, and then there's some things we need to talk about afterwards that aren't actually brought up. Hello, DM Blackwall. Excuse me. Rule number 1: you choose where you go. The adventure is in your hands. When scheduling your game, you will also need to tell the DM where your characters want to go next. So, in essence, one of the things about this is that the DM does not schedule games. One of the players, gets a group of players together and says, "Hey, can y'all play at this time or at these different times?" Then that player goes to the DM and says, "Hey, can you run a game at this time or this alternate time?" You got to be flexible with schedule, right? And then the DM shows up. The
Yeah,
players are in charge of the schedule. Now, which brings me to one of the first things. For this to run well, there has to be GM availability,
yeah.
which is why you see the larger games have more than one DM.
Right.
Right. And it's another reason why a lot of these games I think it's more suited to OSR, like an OSE. In OSE, it's very BX, it's very procedural, and you're really just kind of following directions. If you
Right.
follow the directions of the game, you can DM.
Yeah.
Right.
And the role playing is like classic role playing. Like I'm playing the role of the fighter.
Right.
You're not worried about your backstory. You're not worried about some story arc that your character's like
Right.
intrinsically involved in. It truly is an emergent story. But I want to back up to the whole scheduling thing too, because this is key. Um, the the the
At
way I've
most,
always looked.
sorry, at most, making nothing happen in town makes the game static. Absolutely not. Nothing happening in town forces your players to leave town for adventure. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Please go.
yeah. The 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 way I've always looked at it is you have Tom, Dick, and Jane uh are really intrigued by the rumor about the Spider Haunt Woods, okay? And they're like, we want to go check that out. And then they talk to each other and they're like, hey, we're free from 2 to 6 on Saturday afternoon, March 3rd. Hey, DM, are you available at that time? Because we'd like to go to the Spider Haunt Woods. Game Master says, yes, actually, I am. Boom. That's what's happening. And then you got Fred, Bill, Steve, and Jake hear a rumor about the Doom Mountain or whatever, and they figure out a time and they approach the Game Master. Hey, we got 2 hours on a Monday night. You think we can make it to Doom Mountain? Can you be there? Game Master says, yeah, actually I can. Or maybe not. I can't do Monday, but I can do Tuesday. So there's a lot of this scheduling that needs to go on. So there's some bookkeeping. But
there's some. We haven't even got to all the bookkeeping yet.
I know. Yeah,
we got about an hour till we get to that one. So that's the big thing. Who was it? Are you guys going to cover multiple groups or GMs in the West Marches game? So for now, I'm going to start this game and DM when I can. When it becomes obvious that we need multiple DMs, I'm really going to be looking at Lord Mateus' server. I think that, I think because me and Lord Mateus talked about this a little while, I think he might DM some, but I don't know how much right now. We've talked about kind of time constraints, and if I'm not mistaken, you have about 10 different projects you're working on. So
one's almost done. Two,
right? Yeah. So at the moment, Lord Mateus is not. I don't want him to be the first person that we call. Right. I'm gonna want a game for maybe a month or two or however long, and I'm sure there are players and people can volunteer, and we will work that process out. But this is assuming that we need it. Like, there's a good chance I'm going to have like 4 people sign.
Right.
You
right.
never know. We'll all these problems, and this is one of the things I'm trying to get over. We make problems before there are problems, and we use that to slow us down. And I'm trying to not do that with this. I want to get a game started pretty quick.
I just sent out an invite.
There will be a mega dungeon question. I don't know yet, at most, and if I did know, I wouldn't tell you because I expect you to play a bit. Okay,
you have to discover it.
Yeah, you would have to discover it. I'm not going to tell you anything. There's a lot of things that are going to turn people off here. Everybody's like, "Oh, West Marches," and as we go down the line,
yeah,
yeah. All right, so number 2, players can join session on at-will basis. There is no set party. Characters can and should adventure in different groups. What this means is if people are looking for a game on a Saturday afternoon and you played in that game Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday you're looking at Discord and somebody says, hey, we're looking for another player, you can just join in on that game, right? You may not be able to use the character you want to use.
Correct.
We will get to that. And you've got to adjust your thinking. The campaign is not about your character. The campaign is about the setting. Okay. So you can jump into games. These games will not be exclusive. In fact, I chose OSE. OSE is designed to be run with 6 to 8 players. I don't want, and we can work this out, but I want there to be like this open policy. If you start a game and you bring your 4 buddies, that's not exclusive. We've got 4 more spots. This is not, and nobody's paying for anything exclusive. 4 more people show up, they're playing. We're going to play. And it also there's one of the great things, and we'll get to this. We'll have to talk about multiple characters, but if you play a game like this, you are really going to know this game. If you
Right.
have always played fighters in 5e because you get to pick your class and switch things around, this game is going to be an eye opener for you. All right, number 3, players schedule sessions with each other through the forum. For us, that would be Discord. The DM will not as in all capitals, take the initiative. If players want to play, it is their responsibility to make it happen. I think this is kind of true. In fact, the more I read, I don't even want to post a schedule of when I would be available. You know, I read a couple horror stories about somebody who was trying to run a game and he didn't really schedule. He just said, "Hey, these are my most available days," and it wound up bad for him for whatever reason. Hello, Paladin. Nice.
Hey,
to
what's up,
have you
Paladin?
here. So basically, what that means is the DMs take no initiative to get games started. It is on the player. All right. Will there be NPC adventuring parties at most? There will be at least one. It is already rolled up, and I am thinking of funny names for all of them right now. You will hate them forever. Let's go down the rules. Okay, number 4. This is going to take a minute. Players can make as many characters as they want, but characters can't transfer gold or items between PCs. All PCs begin at first level. And I think I added here, players are required to have at least 2 PCs. You're going to have more. If it's something you participate in often, you're going to find yourself with 3 to 5 easily. The reason for that is time. And we're about to get into that. For those of you who don't know what one-to-one time is or wondering what our version of one-to-one time is, because there seems to be some conflicting ideas about that. We're going to get to that after this list is over. Number 5, each session is self-contained. Characters venture into the wild each session and return home each session. Talked about this a little bit before. You start at the tavern. You're getting you hire your retainers, you gear up, you make sure you have everything you need. You head out to the dungeon or the part of the wilderness that you want to explore. And before your session is up, you must travel back home. Now, in game, you might be out for 6 days, and that's fine, but you've got to get back home before the session is over.
In your research, because I've have some experience with West Marches, not intimate, but I kind of know what this is. So Gary's been reading a lot about the OSR lately. So when he started poking around with the West Marches, I smiled because I was like, I remember those days. I too wanted to do a West Marches when I really got into the OSR. But have you read anything about like what people do when they don't make it back by the end of the session?
A little
Have you
bit.
seen anything like that?
A little bit. The most popular over the past couple years, the most popular bit of advice that people are given or that I have seen in videos, I haven't read anything about it in any essays or anything like that. Maze Rats has a table they roll on. That seems to be fairly popular. I've never seen the table. I don't own Maze Rats. And other than, I think I read something in Into the Wilds, which Into the Wilds is a thick read. It takes a while, but I've skipped around and looked at different things. And I think the way they do it is it costs you gold per hex. So if you're playing the game, you don't look at the clock, you realize that you don't have time to actually play the travel back home, there is a penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know what my penalty is going to be because I do want to keep pretty strict time.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And just for everyone's edification, Gary and I did not discuss how we were going to structure this conversation. So I'm just going to talk about this for a little bit because I think it's important. I actually, was a couple years back. There's a guy on Twitter. He Eric Rabe, I think E-Rabe, something like that. The
Yep.
dude's an old school RPG OSR guy. I love reading his tweets because he like does these little mini play reports, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. I love. He's a real pleasant guy. He had this awesome open world pirate game where every time a character died, they drink rum and put it on the wall and stuff. Anyway, he had so, and I don't remember the specifics, but he actually had a table he would roll, and death was a possibility. But you would show up, if at the keep or your home base, equipment might be missing, gold might be missing. You might show up with like a fraction of your hit points to represent, the trials and tribulations, or your character might die. It was a slim chance, but it was a possibility. And it really encouraged his players to not fuck around and pay attention to the time. But these things happen, and who knows? But it also would create like this interesting emergent thing. Like, what happened on your way back that you show up with like 3 hit points and you lost your backpack,
And I also, and this is, and I want to get your thought, and I wanted everybody who's watching this, I want to get their thought. I played in a game not too long ago. It was a Shadow Dart game, so it wasn't as stringent, but the way they had it set up is you just started in front of the dungeon, right? And everybody, they just wanted to play, right? Even the GM, he was a good guy, and he would look at the clock and be like, "Oh, we got 10 minutes left. All right, you guys go home. The dungeon's not that far away. You guys make it home. I'll see you next week." And now this was not a West Marches style game. This was just, one party going through the dungeon. Do you think in early levels, some dungeons like maybe 2 hexes away, 1 hex, skip here's the keep, 1 hex away, you've got a dungeon. Do you see hand waving travel as a cardinal sin? Is it like fudging dice?
I would in this instance, yes, and because we haven't gotten there yet, time is going to be important.
Absolutely.
But I do think that it would be smart, and with whatever you're doing, I don't know if you're going to be doing this in the Stara or your own world. I don't know what. If you did have a couple starting dungeons, like I don't know if you remember the red box set. There was that starting dungeon that was literally a day away, and it was just a keep, right? A ruined keep, but there was something underneath it that you could keep expanding. Like something like that, I think would be great,
Well, no, we'll get to world build. That's a whole other fucking thing. And there's a lot of people with a lot of advice. The last thing I read that impressed me, of course, you're going to hear it a few times tonight, probably was the construction chapter of the the judge's journal in Macris's Acts 2. He goes into just kind of how he puts things together and why he puts things together this way. And he does a lot of mini dungeons as opposed to a mega dungeon. And I know somebody asked if there's going to be a mega dungeon. I don't know. I really don't know. I have an idea for one. And in my head map, I know where it is and I know why it's there. So maybe, but that's a lot of work. We'll see what happens. While we're on the topic of dungeons, I do plan on stealing from everywhere. It will all be reskinned.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe I'll give a prize to somebody who's like, "Hey, man, I know this one."
Right. Yeah. Well, I've been on a mega dungeon kick, so I've purchased a couple that I found cheap. So I could certainly make recommendations. I won't say what they are because some of them are kind of famous. You know what I mean? But I think, but if someone figured it out, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you did it. Here's an extra gold piece.
Absolutely. So, okay, so that's number 5. Everything self-contained. You leave the tavern, you come back. That has to happen within the session. Number 6, if characters change the world, other players will see the change if they follow the same path in a later session. Okay. This brings in the question of time, but essentially, if your party goes out and burns down, the farm out in the field, when another party comes along, that farm is burned down. It's always burned down. It will be burned down until somebody rebuilds it. And when somebody rebuilds it, the party that burned it down walking past will see that it's rebuilt. There you go. Actions have consequences.
Yeah. Well, you have to, because it helps simulate an organic world, and that this campaign world, this setting is alive and thriving. I mean, it's more than just the thing burned down. Let's say you have that ruined keep that's like a day away. Couple parties have gone in over the course of, let's say, a month, and totally clear it out, and then they ignore it because it's cleared out. Well, after another month or two, did something move in? Is the dungeon going to get restocked? Are bandits now in there? Like, that sort of thing. And that's things that you got to, take into consideration.
Well, and there's also the idea that you could have a party and go through the dungeon and get halfway through the first level before you get to the big treasure hoard. And you're like, we got to leave. We got to go home. And then the party that shows up the next day goes to check out that dungeon and you've cleared it for them.
Yep.
They take out the boss and they get the treasure. These are all things that happen. Let's see. Number 7, the keep is home and safe. Characters cannot be killed while in a keep, cannot kill others, and their money may be safely stored in a bank. Ollie Ollie Oxen free. You're on base. You are safe. We've already talked about that.
Yep.
High level NPCs will never enjoy the adventuring party. Retainers must be hired to fill out the party. Now, here comes a question, and this is for everybody that's listening as well as for Matt. The DM can always roll up a bunch of retainers and have them on standby. Or some games allow their players to use their backup characters as retainers, earning half XP and a half share of the loot. More than one place that I have read has talked about, if you do this, then those retainers are controlled by the dungeon master until they are no longer with the prime characters. So, for example, were you to send a retainer outside of the dungeon to guard the treasure, at that point, the player and the other guy's still in the dungeon, at that point, the player controls. But while they are together, the GM controls, right? All right. Cyrus says hirelings. The hirelings, retainers. It's the same thing.
Not enough people use hirelings and retainers and all that stuff, in my opinion. That's why I find it funny. Some of the hardcore OSR guys aren't as hardcore as I'd like to think they are. But
so that's the question. What do you think? Do you allow backup characters to act as retainers, or do you insist that they hire retainers outside? This is a rules as written question, right? Like, are we going to start changing it right now, or what?
Well, I don't know what it actually says in OSE on this front. I think this is more of a consideration.
It says the same thing as BX.
That you can use backup characters?
No. It says it doesn't even, that's not even a consideration.
Well, that's my point. Yeah. So this is really more of how are we setting up the West Marches game, like what the rule is going to be.
And I'm just kind of asking your opinion. Like,
how I get it.
Feel about that?
Yeah. So I'm torn because I'm actually using it in my Lamentations game, but that's not a West Marches game. That was just kind of like a sandbox. And Brian James is in there and he likes it. It looks like, and it does. And I did that more because it's Lamentations. It's freaking hard. I've killed like 20 some odd characters at this point. And I just want to make sure, I gave the players the opportunity to just kind of like cushion the blow, in this though, I sort of feel like you're inviting gaming the system a little bit. Like, I like the idea of, like, if I had, let's say, 3 characters, they're off doing their own thing. They're like their own character. Now, like you said, the campaign is not about my characters. It's about the setting. But inside my head, I have this awesome barbarian and I want this barbarian to do awesome things. And I have this cool mage and I want that mage to. I sort of feel like if I have them traveling together, I'd be kind of gaming the system a little bit. And I think you're now, while it will, what I'm suggesting is going to create a little bit more work for the DMs, plural. I think having a backup or retainers on hand, and not everything needs to be their own character. It could just simply be, I'm hiring a bunch of swordsmen. You know what I mean? But if you actually have someone, a character, an NPC, excuse me, a hireling that ends up kind of being elevated to this like retainer, there's supplements out there you can just pick up, like was it the old Shady Dragon Inn from BX days? It's just chock full of characters, just pluck one of those out and use it. But I personally think you shouldn't, for this kind of game, to keep it feeling organic and less gamey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm not, I've been going back and forth on it, but I think I'm going to create a pile of retainers. And I think they're going to have to hire them, at least for right now, because you're right. There will be a lot of gaming the system, but it's a game. It's a game. You know what I mean? It is.
No, I know. And that's why I'm always like, I'm trying, just so people know, like, where my headspace is as a game master. I've been thinking a lot about this since our last conversation, the conversation with Griff. Like, what I don't have like a style. I don't think. I think about what kind of experience I want to have, and then I think about all the tools I have available to facilitate that experience. So, like, my Lamentations game is a little bit more beer and pretzels, classic dungeon crawl. I'm not really worried about role playing all that much, though I do appreciate it. I don't mind a little meta game just to help make sure the players know what's going on, But I think my next game, I might actually try some 4-dimensional RP, because I just heard, what's his name, Crispy, talking about like constantly being in character. I'm like, that might be kind of fun. So, but that's neither here nor there. This is a different.
What have you done with Lord Mateus?
I know.
Return him.
But anyway, so like for this particular thing, there's always this balancing act, because we want to be immersed in this thing, but it's also a game, and games are fun, and we want to have fun with the game, and the immersion helps. Venger Satanis likes to say the goal is immersion. And for me, in a West March, if you tell me we're going to do West Marches, I'm going to be expecting an organic world where every time I go into the section of my Discord server where everyone's doing their play reports, I'm going to see this world come alive through the play reports, not just because I'm showing up to a game every now and again. It's going to be all about the play reports. So, but at the same time, man, I mean, if everyone's got a heart on about it, like, no, I really want all my characters to travel together, I don't think it's going to kill the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something that we're probably spending too much time on it. It is an idea. It's fleshed out really well and Into the Wilds. They give good reasons for it, but they also kind of say, hey, some players are not going to like this. That's cool too. So, all right. Last rule: character versus character combat is possible, but all capitalized is not all capitalized lethal. 0 hit points means the character is knocked unconscious. Now this, I don't know. This brings up a whole other topic, but I don't know how two parties would run into each other during a game.
Cyrus plays Lamentations. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Yes. So as far as PvP goes, while the game is on, I really don't know how two parties are going to run into each other. As far as somebody in the party killing other party members, I don't know.
Well, you described something that would cause an issue earlier in one of your examples. The party goes in to a dungeon, they get almost to the end, but like they have to back out because they depleted resources, whatever. They make it back to the inn and they do their play report and they're like, oh my God, we could feel the dragon's breath, but we couldn't get in there and we saw the glint of gold. And then Tom, Dick, and Jane are like, hey, what are you doing on Saturday? I have a fully healed fighter, magic user, blah, blah, blah. Let's go get the treasure. So they do. And Bill, Steve, and Jack are all pissed off because they missed out on it. I can see
So they
there
should be able to
being,
gank them. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that could
Okay.
result in.
But
And I heard Professor Dungeon Master actually talked about this a year or so ago, because his son was running a kind of West Marches game. It only
yeah.
had two major
Yep.
groups, but those groups, because of all the crap that they were
Yep.
doing, it boiled to a head and they fought. And I think that actually sort of
They had to
was,
arrange a time.
yeah,
Like there was definitely a time that had to be arranged. And I don't have a problem with PvP. Here's the thing. I think that when I think that the first time another player, let's say there's two people that make it out of the dungeon, right? And that player stabs another player in the back. I think there will be natural consequences both inside and outside of the game.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that PvP should be allowed everywhere but in town. I think town is sacrosanct. I don't think
Yeah, I think
PvP.
that's fair. I mean, it's like it's one of those like legal fictions you just have to accept.
You just got to accept it. Yeah,
It's not
that's just the way
organic,
it
blah blah
is.
blah. Yeah, yeah. No, I
Yep,
agree.
yep.
I don't know. Like in theory, I'm always fine with player versus player, because a
Right.
lot of the games I typically play are not something like this, and there is this interaction. In fact, in my Forbidden Lands game, two players were at odds with each other and they tried to kill each other. They ended up being somewhat successful. It's kind of complicated. Both of them died in the same session, and the rest of the party was so fed up with it they didn't even try to heal them. They just let them bleed out in the field, and they just kept hex crawling. um, there wasn't any bad feelings, but that's because we game together and have been gaming together for well over 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas on my Discord server, as cool as everyone is, we're still kind of strangers and we have like a parallel relationship for those of us. I can see bad feelings, especially if someone's being really dastardly. You know
Oh,
what I
there would
mean?
definitely, I mean, without a doubt, there would be bad feelings. Like without a doubt. I mean, depending on if the two players that show up are friends and they're just doing stupid guy shit, maybe not. But I don't know. That's a question, and maybe that's something that we will ask. Maybe no PvP. Maybe no PvP is a good idea. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I do feel like if you don't have PvP as an option, then you're truly playing like with training wheels. You are.
This is kind of like the conversations I remember getting into during the World of Warcraft years, when my buddies were like, I never got into World of Warcraft. I tried to play, it just wasn't for me. But like there was this like, should we do a PvP server? Should we do a PvE
Yeah.
server? And that's the question. Like PvP is going to up the difficulty. At most, I'm not cool with PvP from inside your party. Yeah, I mean, like if you have a player who said, I mean, this could end up sort of working itself out. If there's a player that's just dastardly, and it doesn't even have to be like killing players, it could just be the guy who's always hanging back and then snatches the gold
Yeah.
and runs off. That classic chaotic evil description from like the second edition manual, right? Where
Right.
he's just kind of hanging back and then just like bragging, oh yeah, whatever, and then threatens the party. Well, that player is probably not going to be invited to the next outing. Hey,
Right.
we're ready on Saturday, but we're not bringing you. you know?
But if I have an open table policy
Yeah,
where
that's a good point.
you can
Yeah.
fill the spots real quick, Flint asks, are character versus character done with player permission? Do they both have to agree?
Oh,
It's either, I feel like it's either on or it's off. You know, either you have it or you don't. You know, if you're going to join a game that has it, you're going to join a game that doesn't have it. You know, and the nature of the tabletop game means that, you know, you're not just going to have somebody show up in the middle of your session and say, oh, I'm waiting in ambush for you. No, he's not been at the table. I'm not going to take time to have him travel up there. We're
yeah.
doing this session right now. Like, I don't even know how PvP would happen outside the party unless somebody contacted me and said, hey, we're watching them and we want to know when they're playing, and when they leave town, we want to ambush them. You know what I mean? Like, they would have to
Right.
get in touch with me and we'd have to work some things
Yeah.
out.
Well, that's the thing too, because whenever there's an outing, there's already been a pre-discussion amongst the players getting involved in the outing before they approach the game master. So it's not
Right.
like someone is going, like, you're right, someone's just not going to show up and ambush you. And I think, like, going back to that example with Professor Dungeon Master's kid, things had escalated and the emergent story evolved into these competing adventuring parties that
Right.
boiled to a head. And at that point, I got the sense that everyone just thought it was cool. You know what I mean? So they were on board with this like battle royale, that to end all wars kind of thing and be the dominant adventuring party. And so that if people are like okay with that, but again, if the likelihood of someone saying, oh, I'm just going to join the Saturday outing to screw with the players, that's a possibility, but I think it's low. And
If it's a player griefing, they will be gone. If it is a player with a plan, I don't know. You might deal
well, I gotta let
DM
me.
Blackwall,
Oh,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
DM Blackwall says PvP is good when running multiple parties in the same world. I agree, and that is the plan. The plan is to do that.
Yeah,
Flint, real quick. I'm sorry.
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll address what Flint said. By the way, Flint, thanks for showing up, man. I actually have had to ban a few people from my server. I don't want to really get into the details, but one guy, the reason why I banned him was he would show up to like my one shots and purposefully like break the session. Like, his goal was to just completely derail it. And the first time he did it, I thought, I actually kind of like blamed myself. I'm like, oh, I guess I just misunderstood what was going on. But then I ended up gaming with him on another server in another setting, and he did the exact same thing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So then he popped up on another one shot, and I'm just like, well, let's just give him one last chance, because I'm a pretty permissive, I give everyone a couple chances, enough rope to hang yourself. Yeah, and he just like, it was bad, and he started getting into really weird stuff. So I'm like, you're out. That is like such a rare experience. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, the more we talk about this, the more I'm like okay with the concept of PvP, because it's going to be rare.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to be afraid to ban somebody if I have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if it is a real world griefer, they're gone. If it makes sense in game, especially in those higher level, which we'll get to the higher level games. But there's a few things I want to address real quick. What if there was a magic item that created the temporal space where a battle is going to take place, consequences, not death? That would have to be some sort of campaign lore story thing. And I don't know, maybe I think it's, the thing is it's not about players deciding they want to fight each other. It's about this emergent gameplay where players feel the need for revenge or greed for a domain or something like that. Like, I really kind of, the point of a West Marches game for me is lasting consequences. Your actions have consequences on the world. So I think maybe in a regular campaign, but with this it'd be different. Real quick, Atmos says anytime any backstabbing happens from inside the party, that group ends up dissolving and maybe 1 to 2 people stay. His second comment is, and the backstabber ends up leaving because of out of game blacklisting. And at most, I would agree with that if we're playing a traditional game where there is one party and that one party gets together every week and they play the same characters. I think with this style of game with multiple characters and the limitations due to time, which we are going to talk about, we'll call it the grievance.
That's great. That's good.
That's actually kind of good. Maybe it's a gladiator pit. I don't know. It's like a magical gladiator pit. We'll figure it out. No, I think from your experience, you're probably right, Atmos. And I think that you're correct. Like, I think in the traditional gaming setup, that would be the way it is. From your experience for multiple parties. Well, then
can I interject? Because he's talking. I don't want to put words in Atmos's mouth here, but like one of the things I remember reading from the Ars Ludi article is you need to avoid having the same players constantly grouping up. Like you really need to have like this switch up. So like if everyone is kind of, and you sort of form this bond and you're always traveling together, the game master does have to try to encourage other players to like join that and mix things up a bit. So I mean, again, I don't think the group would disevolve because there is no group. It's the campaign.
Right. There is no one group.
It is a real issue, and it's a fair issue, and it's one that's worth talking about. What if you have like this griefer that's just trying to be an asshole, and he's not about the game. He's just,
Well, and I think, and I don't want to spend the whole night talking about PvP because it's not.
Oh, really I know it's like it's a
one or the other, but because one, I think we said before, and if you guys have been following along, it's not like people are going to show up spontaneously in the middle of your session. You know what I mean? And when it comes from inside the group, I mean, I honestly, let me put it this way. I understand the frustration of somebody who plays the game sort of in achievement mode, right? I get that. But and when your achievements get nullified or what have you, it's frustrating. Oh, and I get it. I don't think this is going to come up very often. I think when it does, there better be a good reason for it, because if it is just griefing, then that guy's gone. But I can see a place for it. You guys have to remember, I don't care about your individual character, and you really shouldn't care that much about your individual character. In this type of game, the campaign is not about your story arc. The campaign is about the world. And the campaign is the setting and the consequences of your actions upon that setting.
Yeah, and it's not, and we keep saying PvP, and it's not like PvP means death of your character, because there is no character death when it is PvP. It's just you're going to get knocked unconscious, some gold's going to be taken from you, and then that's it.
Yeah, and I see that everybody's like, well, what is it? PvP wastes more time usually than fulfills it. I would probably agree with you, but like I say, where are the opportunities going to arise for it? You know what I mean? I don't know. We can discuss it later, but I feel like it would be inauthentic to it would be what's it called? Anathema, is that the word? To the idea of what this living world game, if you don't have to worry about the thief in your party. I think you should worry about the thief in your party.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean? I agree with,
and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen that often. I agree with
you, Gary, actually, on this, like almost pretty much 100%. Like the chance of it happening, I think, is pretty rare, just by virtue of the type of game it is. You're already committed to going to do this thing by the time you show up to the table because of the pregame discussion about the rumor you want to follow. So you already have this goal in mind, and so you're going to work together to achieve that goal. Come back, and at the end of the day, like just logically, you're gonna get a lot farther. There it is. You're going to get a lot farther by working together, because the
Truth.
PvE, if properly done right, is going to be too lethal already. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. We're going to listen. We are 5 minutes from 11. Our next topic down this line is time.
Everyone's favorite.
I feel like that's everyone's favorite. I would like to take a 5 minute bio break because I think this is where things are going to kind of heat up and we're going to have, I know PvP is a hot topic. I think it's a big nothing ball. That's just me. And in about 5 minutes, we're going
I'll
to come
stick
back.
around.
And unless you
I'll
want to,
stick around,
you're going to
chat with
stick
her. You
around.
go
All
do
right.
what you got to do.
I thought you had break
No,
music.
I
thought you
haven't had a
break
chance to come up with break music. It takes time, dude.
Okay. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to turn these things off and I'll be back in a minute.
Let's see. Character development, not at the expense of the world, but in conjunction with the world. That's Flint. Yeah, that's why I said earlier it's kind of like in my head. It's really for my edification. It's for my enjoyment. I make Ragnar the barbarian and Dumbledore the wizard. I'm exploring this world and I'm going on these adventures in this world, and it's really, there is no story arc that I'm working with the Kingmaster to develop. It's just sort of like what I'm doing in my head, and it's purely emergent. And I may think Ragnar is this awesome badass fighter, but the very first like major conflict I get involved in, I like run because I'm so injured, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden I have like this cowardly streak, So in a way, you almost start discovering your character as you're playing, which I really like. I've experienced that a lot actually when I play Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I have this initial idea, but I can't be wedded to it because something crazy is going to happen to that character, and it's going to totally change the way I look at the character as I play. So that's one of the things I really like about like this sort of style of game. Atmos, I don't agree with the town being safe. Fighters can do stronghold play right off the bat at level 1 in OSE. I can't talk to the second part of that, but the town being safe, I think, is necessary for this. Otherwise, you're going to be quickly moving into like an always-on game that I've been a part of them, the Bro SR. Like I've done it, not for very long, and it is exhausting. And I wasn't even a DM. I was just a player and a patron. And apparently my patron had a reputation, which was cool, but it was exhausting. And I don't think a large scale Bro SR thing should be started right off the bat when you're kind of new to the West Marches thing. I think West Marches can develop into something like that, where you have like those fighters and magic users and thieves and clerics get high enough level where they have domains and they build, structures and that can grow naturally. And at that point, the game would have been going on long enough. The DMs involved and the players involved will be more comfortable with something like that. But I think for the beginning, I think you need to really embrace that sort of what in my line of work, we call it a legal fiction. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's necessary for the whole thing to work. So I do think the town needs to be safe. Let's see. Oh, I'm scrolling through. Everybody's like chatting like crazy. This is awesome. I'm really glad everyone's here. I'm glad this topic is exciting for everybody. There is a dude on Twitter, X Ben Roe Caliber, I think is his handle. He's doing like a West Marches thing in Dark Sun, and I was like, well, I'll be a player in that. Hasn't started yet. I hope some of those guys are here because we're talking about it, and so there's been this West Marches has just been popping up a lot in the past like couple weeks, and it's just such a cool. To me, it's like sort of the great middle ground between what like the Bro SR does and like your more standard conventional games, and I think it has been proven. I mean, it can work. So let's see. Let's see.
Hello,
You're
hello.
back.
Thank you.
I just wanted to scrolling back up because I know I missed some. Let's see. So about the character. Okay, I already talked about that. I can see that I played where games where town is safe. You can have quest givers there, but you aren't worried about getting mugged. Yep, town is supposed to drain your money, so you go back out. Yes, House of Nyx. This is exactly what it is. And when we start talking about time, we're going to talk about how your coinage gets drained even further.
Yeah. Well, okay, so and I still see at most it's odd to have the town be separate from the game world. It's not separate from the game world, and this is a lot of the things that I think people are adverse to are going to kind of get explained as we start talking about time. One-to-one time, what is it? How does it work? Matthew, you are the lawyer.
Yep. So I got to be careful too, because if I say the wrong thing, a certain group, there's a certain group of people, I've already mentioned them, are going to.
For whom this is a religion.
Is their religion. They're like the Mandalorian. One-to-one time is our religion. They'll spurg out. So one-to-one time summed up is 1 day of in-game. For every day that passes in-game, 1 day passes in the real world, and vice versa. So best way to kind of describe it is if Tom, Dick, and Jane decide to play on March 1st, and they travel to the Spider Haunt Woods, and it takes them 2 weeks to get there and back, those characters will not be available until March 15th in the real world when time catches up. And that is when they will release their play report, but not until then. And
maps,
any maps that they've made, because they're not back home yet. So no one knows what's happened to them. And it's certainly possible Tom, Dick, and Jane leave on March 1st and they never come back. But that's essentially one-to-one time. And it's necessary for this to work organically, because while Tom, Dick, and Jane are in the Spider Haunt Woods for 2 weeks, Bill, Steve, and Dave are at Mount Doom for a week. And if you have multiple characters, that's how you're able to play during
House of Nyx. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
This is the reason for having a character stable.
Exactly. Spot on. So you can still play during the 2 weeks that you're at the Spider Haunt Woods, but you're just playing a different character during that time. So
there is, so it's just like Matt said, this is referred to, and I've talked to a couple people on your server, and I have read a few Reddit posts. Reddit is trash. In general, Reddit is trash. But I've read a few Reddit posts, and there are a lot of people who do not want to do one-to-one time because they don't want time jail for their characters. Okay? They don't want whatever their character is to go on an adventure that takes 2 weeks and then not be able to play that character for 2 weeks. There is another argument where things like magical research can take weeks, building a stronghold takes weeks, and if you do this in one-to-one time, there is a distinct possibility that you will die of old age before your characters do these certain things. And that, I think, is very unappealing to some players. But I also think, once again, you have to shift your perspective. You are not rolling up a character to craft and mold either for the game rules or at most, I'm going to get to your question in just a minute, but you're not crafting this finely tuned character that's ready for the world. Your characters are imperfect. It is 3d6 down the line. You're going to do the best with what you can. 0 hit points are dead. There are no resurrections, but that's okay because it's about Because it is about the setting. It is not about your character. At most, where is your comment here? How are you going to run the one-on-one time? As in, will you require people to check in daily, play by? No, okay, fuck no. There is a difference between playing one-to-one time and playing always
Bingo.
on.
Yes.
Okay. Always on is a different beast. And if anybody wants me to run an always on game, you better get to the Patreon.
Yeah.
Which we don't have yet. But I'd be more than willing to run an always on game, but I'm getting paid because that's not just a hobby management. That's not just being deep in your hobby. That is living your hobby. And we are not doing that. At the end of a session, you can tell me what your character wants to do with their downtime. Typically, this is magical research. It's healing. You know, we're going to be playing OSE, so there's not a lot of training.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a ton of downtime things to do until you reach some higher levels. So don't even worry about it. If you guys want to get on the server and have your characters interact, then that's fine. But no DM is going to show up to run your spontaneous duel in the middle of the street. You know, that's just
it's another quote unquote legal fiction just to make sure this works. Like there's going to be no PvP at this in this safe zone, the city, the village, the keep. And while we are using one-to-one time to keep track of all the adventures that are going on, downtime is just going to be sort of like, what are you doing? Okay, you're doing magical research and it's going to take you 2 weeks. Okay, you can't use them for 2 weeks. Mark it on the calendar. Done. You know? Yeah.
Yep. Well, and this is where, you know, not too long ago, there was a spat of videos that kind of talked about West Marches from the time aspect. And everybody was quoting the Gary Gygax, you know,
strict time records must be kept.
Must be kept to have a meaningful campaign. And he was right. Yeah. If you're running that old school campaign, and I think one-to-one time throws people, but you need to understand that this is a game about the world. This is, and Macris really describes this well. This is not a social event. We are not gathering so that I present you with an entertaining story and you say left door or right door. Okay. This is the GM and the players are more akin, in his games at least, to like an intramural sports league. They are working together towards a goal, you know. In a lot of ways, that's what this is.
I'd want to interject. I'm sorry, because like I really like your phrasing of changing one's perspective, because that really is the key here. That I'm going to use the phrase conventional play. The Bro SR use it, but they use it as a means to be derogatory, and I'm not, because I have nothing against conventional getting together with your groups, because that is a social event. You know, that's what my good buddies, we get together once a month, game for like 6 to 8 hours, because that's the only time we can get together, and we cook and we laugh and we joke, we talk about our lives, we roll nerd dice, we kill dragons, and it's awesome. And that is a social event, and that is a great game, and it's fun and it's meaningful. But West Marches, and to a broader extent, the Bro SR, is a completely different animal. It is like, you really need to shift your perspective. Like, you are contributing to the story of this campaign world. Like, whatever Gary's planning on doing for the world itself, the setting, he'll lay like the foundation, but then you're going to be building on top of that through your adventuring. Hey, Ultra, what's up, man? Thanks for showing up. Great job on Legion of Myth tonight, dude. I wish I could have been there for all of it. But yeah, you're going to be building on top of that, regardless of what it is. Whether you're clearing out a dungeon, maybe you're taking over a keep and making it yours, or whatever comes to mind as you're going through. But your character can be meaningful to you, but it's not going to be meaningful to the campaign unless you're really proactive, and that's not going to happen until way down the line.
And I would go so far as to say that your characters, plural, can be meaningful to you. You know what I mean? Like one of the things that I really like about this, or the prospect of this, is that there are going to be a lot of players playing classes they've never played before with people they've never played with before. And you will know the game very well. Like you'll know this game inside and out to the point where the mechanics are almost automatic. And I think that's good for gameplay in general. So that's 1-to-1 time. I think I was talking to Hector on the server, and me and him were talking, and it was like, well, maybe, we could at certain points advance the timeline. And, I kept thinking of ways to kind of help the players who don't want to do, time jail. But the more I thought about it, and it's going to sound crazy, I feel like there's more advantages to doing it. I agree. Than not. It makes more sense to do it than not. It is more coherent as a world to do.
In preparation, because like I said, I've read a lot of the stuff that you've been getting into the past few weeks. But in preparation, I did kind of like check and look and see what other people were doing. Almost universally, 1-to-1 time is used, but I did stumble upon, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was actually on that Dark Sun game. They were talking about doing something a little bit more static. So I'm just going to float it out there, and I'll just get your take. But instead of 1-to-1 time, it's more of like a first come, first serve, and that's how time advances. So March 1st, Tom, Dick, and Jane go to the Spiderhaunt Woods. In game, they're there for 3 weeks. All right, but they make it back, and they on March 1st in the real world, and they post their play report. Okay, and then Steve and Dave and Bill on March 3rd decide they're going to go to the Spiderhaunt Woods, and it takes them like a couple of weeks because of the travel and all that. In game, a month has passed, right? But because Group 1 did it first, those events in the Spiderhaunt Woods take hold, and it doesn't matter what time Group 2 does it. But that will allow Group 1 to play on March 5th on the third foray, even though technically in game they were gone 3 days, or 3 weeks or whatever it was. I was like, well, that might work. I just feel like that's not organic. You know what I mean?
No, it's not organic. And I think, there is a real Cloaker. I'm going to get to you in just a second, man. I think the most organic way to do it is to follow 1-to-1 time. And hopefully, you get enough players that try it for long enough, they like it, and they bring their friends. And we'll see. Real quick, Cyrus says, when does this start? Cyrus, that is undetermined. Mostly because there is a lot of work for this kind of game to be done on the front end. And I think I just kind of got out of research stage. Like I'm at the point where I'm starting to make some decisions. But I feel like these decisions that you need to make before the game, especially if you're trying to get a lot of players to play at different times, you need to have these decisions kind of ironed out, so that when somebody asks, you don't say, I've been thinking about that. I feel like I need to have certain answers. So when I have those answers hammered out, then as much as I hate to use this term, I have to start world building. And I don't mean like in a dramatic sense, like I got to have dungeons ready. I need to have, a region map. I need to have encounter tables for the different spots within the region. I need to have special features and dungeons, and it needs to be stocked. It's like I can't open the amusement park without the rides. And once you guys get there, you can ride whatever ride you want. But I gotta, you know what I mean? I gotta build
my
that
Lamentations
stuff
of
first.
Elemental Evil game again. That wasn't West Marches, but it was a hex crawl sandbox that I populated with a bunch of Lamentations modules, and then the Temple of Elemental Evil. Hamlet was like the home base, and there was the moat house and all that stuff. And it was a lot of fun. Like I had a lot of joy working on that. I don't know how many hours I spent, but it was considerable, putting together, every time I get a new campaign started, I buy one of these composition books, and then I'll actually glue the encounter tables and stuff, and I just take all my notes in there for each game session. And I spent all this time doing that, and then but once I was ready, I just was like, okay, now I got to find players, and I found some. I pressed play, and like prep went from it was like 90% of the prep was all front loaded, and now it's like I show up and I start rolling dice, and it's awesome. So that's exactly how this style of game is supposed to go as well. So, and that's why Rules is written, is why it needs to happen. So if you get a second DM in, everyone's on the same page. So
Exactly. Yeah, you got to do it, and it does need to be pretty strict rules as written because of that. So,
Trapper, keep your man. There's no balls. All right, that's funny, Cloaker.
All right, so I think we've gone over 1-to-1 time. Everybody knows what it is. I've decided to be strict in the traditional sense about it. I think that's what's going to work best, and you agree. I'm happy with that. 1-to-1 time is what elevates the game from individualized resource management, power fantasy to true party planning as a cohesive group. I will tell you, when when you play a game like this, you will absolutely have to work as a team. I don't know when the last time you guys went on a hex crawl was, but it is not like a dungeon where creatures on the first level are going to be first level creatures and creatures on the second. It is not like that. You will have to work as a team to survive. Real quick, let's move away from time for a minute. Do you think system is important? I have chosen old school essentials. After we get through is system important, I'll tell you why I chose old school essentials and why I think it is important.
I do think system is important because you need a system that is going to be able to handle many different things. I don't think, and I'm a fan of Shadow Dark, and I want to be clear here, I'm not shitting on Kelsey. I just don't think Shadow Dark, for example, would be a good game for this. I could be wrong, but I just don't think it's complete enough. I think you need something that's going to be able to handle everything from that provides you with dungeon crawl procedures, hex crawl procedures, and those sort of like in between downtime procedures like spellcrafting and research and things like that. I think you also need something that's going to have, and this is more of a subtle point, something that's going to have a more realistic natural healing mechanic. Because if you can just heal because of a long rest.
Dude, if I don't let this dog out, he's gonna piss on my floor.
Go ahead.
I'll keep
going. Because I think you know what I'm going to say anyway. I think if you have a something where you can heal up because of a long rest, 1-to-1 time kind of loses some of its oomph because you could come back. I keep using the Spider Haunt Woods. We should probably put it on the map because I keep using it. But if you come back from the Spider Haunt Woods after getting murdered by these giant black widows that are in the forest, and your cleric is dead, and you crawl back to the keep with like 1 hit point, you might
Matt,
be in
you have
longer time
frozen
jail
up.
because you don't have me still? Am I hello? Okay.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
You might be in time jail a little bit longer, not just because of the travel, but because you crawled back with like one hit point and you have to naturally
Yep.
heal because you don't have the funds to hire a cleric to heal you. So I don't think something like Shadow Dark or anything with that kind of healing mechanic, natural healing mechanic will work. It'll just like take the teeth out of and the importance of one-to-one time and make the game less organic. You might as well just not use one-to-one time at that point, in my opinion.
Yep. So our chat is questions about
All right, yeah,
OSC.
go ahead. Why did you
And
want to
I
do
need,
OSC?
yeah, well, OSC, okay, everybody knows BX, right? Like it's just most people know BX. It's fairly natural at this
Agreed.
point. OSC is the most accessible pure BX you can find. The basic set. When you get into the advanced set, that's more like AD&D ideas kind of, transferred over. I'm of two minds about, we're definitely starting with basic set for sure. I'm of two minds about the advanced classes. As I flesh out sort of the lore, I think there's going to be some that will be allowed and some that will not. I hesitate, I've played games and I've heard people say that they use, you get to unlock different character classes. If somebody levels up or whatever, they get to pick a new character class to open up. But there's some character classes that just don't fit everything. They just
Yeah,
don't fit everything.
you probably know where I'm gonna go with this, but
I know exactly where you're
I
going with this.
I played in Legacy Magneto. You know him as Magneto. Legacy, love
Mhm.
that guy because he'll run one shots and mini games just to introduce people to stuff. And I actually we played uh, uh, I can't remember the name of the module now. They'll come to me. But we used advanced OSE. So I had the option of using some of the character classes, and then of course I took them, and I played a dark dwarf, a Duergar, and yeah, it was cool. I got to become a giant thing and start smashing stuff and all this other stuff, but it didn't feel like classic D&D to me. It felt more like
Yeah.
kind of like 5e or something. You know what I mean? I just didn't, and you know what I mean? Because I had all
Yeah.
these like bells and whistles, and I'm just not a fan of advanced. I like the
Well, here's the
classic, and Brian brought it up, the niche protection of the classic,
yeah,
racist
absolutely.
class. The fighters fight, but so anyway,
However, however,
it's your game, man. You do
however,
what you want.
that being the case, I for the most part I agree with you. And we're getting things like, Druid is useless in the dungeon, this guy's useless here, and that's what those hybrid classes are, right? They are sort of weaker versions of two
Yeah,
classes in
yeah.
a lot of ways. I can make a great argument for the Ranger at level 3, at level
Yeah.
4. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know. I think there may be some classes. Now, I will say this: we're not. It's your race is your
Yeah.
class. We're not. We're not. Even if we use the advanced classes, we are not dividing race and class. It's if you're an elf, you're an
You've
elf. Now,
you've
Carcass Crawler 4 just came out, and there's now 3 halfling
you and your
classes.
halflings, dude. Um, I know that's
I love
cool. I
halflings.
consider myself one at times, a hobbit. Well, you sold me on racist class. I've become like, if we think of like the classic, just to do a quick digression, the classic tree, you have the advanced branch, and then you have the BX. I am firmly rooted in BX. I like my racist class. It makes so much more sense just from a world building perspective. I think when you separate the two, you open the door to all kinds of gamey, fiddly bits that become more power gamey. And I love races class, so you got me on that. I'm 100% on board. But yeah, if you want to use some of the other stuff, go right ahead. It's your game, man. You do what you want. But I do think, and
Well,
Atmos made a really good point here. If you want a multi-class, that's what the races are for, and that's exactly how I look at
yeah.
them, like even from a Lamentations perspective too. So, but I think like do we need assassins, right? Do we need druids?
No, but at the same, well, here's the thing. This is what it comes down to. This is typically this kind of game. The story, if you want to call it that, is emergent based on the player's actions. If somebody wants to play an assassin and they want to do assassination gigs, they're gonna suck in the dungeon.
Yeah, but when
Right?
but
Like
when would they
what?
do the assassination gigs? Would that be during downtime?
That's a really
Yeah, would
good
that be
point.
during downtime? And does that mean we're always on? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
You
we're
see what I'm
definitely not.
saying?
We are not always on
Yeah,
ever.
that's what
We're
I'm
not
saying.
always
Like
on.
I think when you
Yeah.
look at the advanced classes, if you want to use them, right? I think you need to
Right.
really think about like what.
Real quick, let's get a poll. Forget about all the advanced classes for everybody who's in chat. Forget about all the advanced classes. Yes or no, Rangers? Yes or no, Rangers? Come on, guys. Y'all talk all kinds of shit. Right up until I
Yeah,
ask y'all something.
they're too busy arguing
All right.
about everything else. It's just cool. That's fine. That's good. If you allow druids, then you are not going to have a party member that is biased towards wilderness play versus dungeons. You introduce a rift in motivations. Chubby Funster. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Yeah, that can be a thing, but I mean, it all depends on what the party wants to do. Like, you could have the druid could shine during the hex crawl towards the dungeon, and then he's just sort of hanging
Yeah.
back, and then on the way,
Okay.
So
The Ranger hate is real.
is there something wrong with
real quick.
Rangers
Hang
in
on.
OSE? I just don't know enough about them, I guess. I liked Rangers in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but Atmos says they rock. Okay. Just flavor your fighter or thief as a tree hugger. I like that. Okay, we can do that.
Sorry, I don't know if you know this. I have this like crazy Chihuahua Doberman mix. I don't know how it happened. He's the meanest little fucker, dude. And he was just outside banging. Like, he didn't scratch the door. He like. Sorry.
What's wrong with Rangers?
So,
Fill me in.
sorry.
Why the Ranger hate?
I think the Ranger hate has mostly to do with the fact that it is a specialized class. That class is really it's designed for hex crawls, and it kind of becomes the badass during the hex crawl, but it's really not of a lot of use in other situations. DM Cloaker and West March's game, every PC is a Ranger at some point, or must be. Yeah, but by that logic, everybody's a fighter or a thief. You know what I mean? You have those games, or you don't have thieves because everybody's a thief. Or, I don't know if I buy that, but I do. I understand. I think the Ranger hate is just that it's a specialized class. It doesn't quite fit in with the typical party. You know what I mean?
Well,
and I think there are people who just really like the classic setup.
Well, I do.
Like, they feel like those classes, the classic 7, right? That's perfect. You don't need anything else.
Does basic OSE have the Mystic in it?
Not in basic.
Just wondering. Okay.
No, and there's no druid in basic.
Okay.
Yeah, it is basic OSE it's just BX, man. There's no druid, no monk.
Yo, Cloaker, also known as Brian. I hope you're feeling better, dude. Whenever someone brings up Bone Tomahawk, I have to say that scene and then cringe. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the movie, and then you'll cringe. That scene. Okay.
Just
I think
basic.
that might be Now I'm a firm believer that, when things get rolling in a campaign and you start kind of getting an idea of like how the tables are and the play and who the players are, you can start
Right.
introducing house rules to kind of accommodate things. I wouldn't have a problem with, and this is certainly, you feel free to disagree. You start off with just the basic 7, and then in like, let's say this thing gets rolling, and 6 months down the line, a year, however long, people are humming along, and all of a sudden there start to be some inquiries. Hey, can we incorporate some of these others?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have a problem with it at that point, But
Yep.
I also, I mean, if you wanted to make it, well, I'm the kind of guy that would do something like this, put something on the map, a secret where like maybe something does get unlocked because you've did this thing, and so now these things are available. I've done that sort of thing
Right.
before. In fact, that's what I was doing with my Lamentations game. As the players did things to benefit the church, for example, the church became more in line with them, so they joined them on this crusade against the temple. And there was a chance they could have gotten the
Yep.
dwarves, but they never bothered to talk to the brewmeister. Oh well.
All right. I don't mean to stop. I think we kind of agreed. The consensus with this crowd is that it is basic OSE classes. There's a couple, I really like the fighter options in Carcass Crawl #1. It's just extra little things for the fighter. They're not that impactful overall. But I also really like the D6 thief skill system a lot from Carcass Crawler #1. If you're unfamiliar with that, basically you do away with the percentage dice. You take all the thief skills. You have 1 point in each. So when you try to, do them, you roll a d6, and on a 1 you succeed. But at first level, you get 4 points to distribute however you like. So you could say have 3 points in this, or what have you. Nothing can go above 5. I think you get an extra 2 points every other level, maybe every level, something like that. Nothing can go above 5. There is some special consideration to pickpocket, where you lose a pip based on the level of the character that you're trying to pickpocket. So I do think for simplicity, we are probably, thank you, House of Nyx. Since you like it, we're fucking doing it. I'm making a call right now. We're
We're
doing
doing
it
it live.
live.
Fuck it.
Thief D6 skill
Yeah,
system is happening. For sure. And I think I'll allow the warrior.
Can I?
Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
don't know the Carcass Crawler rules. But that is exactly what Lamentations of the Flame Princess does. And I think when I read that the first time, it was like a revelation. I'm like, this is so simple. Of course, what Lamentations allows is you can have a 6 out of 6 in your skill, but when you roll 2d6, and you have to roll double ones, I think it is, to fail.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah,
just
we're
saying
not going to do that.
that's the only difference. But like,
Yeah.
it's I do like the D6.
I really
D6
didn't.
system.
When I did that lamentation system with you, I really didn't like it at first. And a lot of it was because I felt like the specialist got all the cool shit. You know what I mean? Like it just bothered. I don't know what it was. There was something about it that just really bugged me. But over time, I'm like, that makes a lot. I mean, everything else is a D6
So
roll.
like
Everything, why not make, and the thieves, and let's face it, man, those thief percentages are bullshit. Especially if you get a DM that doesn't understand that climb sheer surfaces, it doesn't mean climb walls. A thief can just fucking climb a wall, right? You're talking about a hard wall.
There's like no handholds except for like maybe these
that nobody else can climb, right? So I think D6 skills are perfect. So we're gonna do that. Okay, there's a couple other things. Let me see here. Death insurance and heroic deaths.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So basically, the way death insurance works, this is a house rule a lot of people have used. I think it's in Acts or Acts 2. I don't remember where I read it. I did read it somewhere, but I know it's happened. Basically, death insurance is you come back to town after an adventure. You take a certain amount of your gold, you put it in death insurance, it's gone forever. And when your character dies, that gold, if you have 2,000 gold, 2,000 of that becomes XP for your next character when that character dies. Not for just any character, for that character. Okay. So it's a money sink. I think that's simple enough. I don't think anybody would really object to that.
I think
I think it's a way that if you're in mid-level play, you could.
it softens the blow. I've been using we introduced that into my Lamentations game. Again, that's just been like a meat grinder. So the players started. We did in-world sort of story things for it, like so they would do a monument to the fallen character, and
well, that's a different part. That's a heroic death, but that's coming too. Yeah,
but it's the same. It's basic concept, and then the new character gets to start off with some extra XP and maybe enough to start at level 2. I like it. I think it comes from Axe, right? Adventure Conquer King.
I think it does come from Axe. I'm almost positive it does, but I don't want to say, I don't want to be like, yes, it definitely does. But the other part of that you brought up is the heroic death. So it's not every time your character dies, but when your character dies a heroic death, when they sacrifice themselves for the good of the party or some other reason, your characters are in a room, you are not going to survive a fight. All of you are going to be killed, but if you run, you're all going to be killed. And the fighter stands up in front of the door and says, I'm fucking stopping these guys, right? And he dies so that you can escape. That kind of death, the other players in the party can donate to a funeral, a party, whatever you want to call it, to honor this fallen character. And for all the gold that they spend on the funeral, that becomes XP for that player's new character to replace their dead character. And OSC is a deadly game. And if you get a character up to 4th, 5th level, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's heartbreaking when you lose, because I that's happened in Lamentations. Yeah. Someone's like, "Oh my god!" I remember the character's like, "I just made 4th level." You know what I mean? I got to start at first. It sucks. Yep. It sucks, but you have to play smart. And some of the things that's happened in my Lamentations game is some of it's by chance, some of it's they got a little lazy. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I like those rules, and I think it's way better and more, I'm going to use the term again, organic, than coming up with some ad hoc arbitrary death save, or you're still alive until -3 or whatever. Death at 0, but you know what? You put some money away for like this funeral or whatever, and so you're paying for it. You're taking, instead of buying the new suit of armor, you're socking it away for something else, and I think that makes sense. The one thing I wanted to talk about the insurance thing, I think this is going to go into bookkeeping. I mean, I think the game master is going to have to keep track of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time I think of something, it's like, God damn, this is my cat slash never comes out unless I'm all alone and don't want to be disturbed. And then slash is just like, oh, fuck over me. It will require some bookkeeping, and there's going to be some bookkeeping required for every player, basically, and for each character. And I'm working that out right now. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I know you're tired, and we're not going to be going late. There is one other big subject that needs to be broached. This is not an option. I would like your opinions on it, but I don't think it's going to change. Maps, mapping, and VTTs.
Well, here we go.
I promise you that I will not use a high dollar VTT. I promise you that there is a 99% chance I will never use a VTT. Everybody wants to be OSR until it's time to be
Yep.
OSR. Maps are secret. The players will get a map of what they know of their very tiny world that they will expand on as they go through hexes. Dungeon crawls will be done with a mapper. There will be Cyrus Theater of the Mind will get you killed. It is theater of the mind, but you got to have a mapper. Somebody has to do it. Not only that, when you get back home, on the calendar date, when you get back home, that map has to be shared with the larger community. It is essential that somebody be a mapper. When I say that this is not a social event where you come for me to entertain you and I have a bunch of set pieces ready, that we are a team going to do things. I think this is the I think, this is perfect. Now, along with the mapper, there is a caller. I think it depends on how many players we have, honestly. I do think a caller is a good idea. We'll see. I think we'll start with it, and if I find it to be, whatever, we may or may not stick with it. I do think a caller is a good idea, especially I think when you hit over like 5 or more players, that's when it really, comes to it. Cyrus, if the mapper gets killed, this is all good questions. If the mapper gets killed and you guys win the fight, I see no reason why somebody else can't take over mapping. I see no reason at all. If it's a TPK and you don't make it back, there's no map. So this isn't just about being like, we're going to be hardcore, rules is written. This is part of the game that I feel like we've lost. It goes back to that time. Hey, where'd you go, Matt? Matt is gone. Uh-oh. Matt. I don't know what's happened to us. Hey, are you guys still there? Matt, we're having difficulties, bro.
Dude, get up. I think I heard something.
I wonder, oh shit. Oh, can y'all still hear me in the chat? Can we be heard? Can my voice still be heard? Hello, hey. We're here. You okay? So you do hear me. All right. So I guess I'm gonna continue on. I don't know where Matt is. You can, Gary. All right, it's dark. You find yourself in a room with just Gary. It's a 20 by 20 foot room. Be afraid. Be afraid. Well, I really don't know what to do, guys. Hey, it's Matt. I don't know what's up. Matt's getting set up. Matt is here. We can't see you on the stream, but you are here. You have been eaten by a grue. Matt's torch went out. We cannot hear you, Matt. Okay, what about my guitar, Cyrus? What you want to know about it? Yeah, Matt, we can't hear you. Let me send him a message real quick. All right. So I'm just going to go on. All right. Well, let me look at this and see where we are, because really it's you guys I care about. He is trying to fix it. So I think, where were we? We did death insurance, heroic deaths. Okay. I wanted to talk to Matt about this. I hope he gets his, I hope he gets everything worked out, because we were going to talk about the setting. And the setting, I've never played a long campaign in a published setting, minus Mystara, kind of, when I was a kid. And I feel like for a game like this, it is probably much easier for the dungeon master to create the setting bit by bit so that he knows the setting. It's easier to answer questions. You're not necessarily set in stone. Did somebody cast silence? I don't know.
Can
So
you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah. There was a brownout and my entire thing went haywire on my computer. Never seen anything like it. I'm gonna have someone take a look at it. But anyway, I'm back.
Crazy.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I just brought up setting. When planning a game, when we first, in a lot of our conversations, it's always been, let's do West Marches in Mystara. Let's do West Marches in this. Let's do West Marches in that. But the more I read, the more I look at things, it seems to me that the easiest thing to do is kind of do it yourself, so you have less questions, right? So you have less questions, you know your world better, and it's truly discovered by the players. If you do some kind of, ow, bitch, ow, if you do some, this fucking cat, dude.
We're having all kinds of problems tonight, folks.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy, this fucking cat. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of want your opinion on that. I mean, like, there's some settings I love that I've played in, but I really, like I say, I haven't run a game in someone else's setting in forever.
Yeah. Well, when talking about pre-existing settings, my number one rule of thumb is there is no canon. Nothing is canon. I bought the book. I'm going to do what I want with it, and a lot of times it's like I now have, you've done, the author's done some work for me, and then I just play around with it. I think if you took, let's say, Karmikos from Mystara and then just started populating it, I mean, there would be nothing wrong with that, and
You
could
don't
still
feel
be
like
fun for
Mystar is
you.
just too populated? Like, there's just
Why does
so
it have
much.
to be? That's my point. Nothing is canon. Like,
Yeah,
you just do what you want with it now. But if it's going to be more entertaining for you, because you're going to be putting all this work into it, to
right.
just grab a blank hex map and start drawing on it and populating it, that could actually make things a lot easier for you too. Because rather than sitting down and reading through a book to try to get a couple ideas, it's just coming straight from your head. So I don't know. I'm not sold on either. If it was
Yeah.
me, I wouldn't have a problem just saying, "Hey, we're gonna start in Karmikos. What is the starting village there? Threshold. We're gonna start there and go from there." But the whole concept of exploration, though, you run into the issue of metagaming. People would already have the maps, right? So they would less. The whole mapping thing might not be as challenging. You know what I mean? So maybe
Yeah.
it would be better to just come up with your own thing,
I
and
think
you could even do it in pieces. Like, get enough of this levels 1 through 3 done, right, and then start playing, and then just in your spare time start doing the areas that are going to be 4 through 6, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if I were to go about it, it'd probably start, and this is going to sound weird because I am starting small, but I would probably start with like a continental map, just so you kind of understand where things are, kind of can figure out the politics, right? Of, you know, the geography, who's where, what's going on. It would be real simple. The players would probably never see it, you know. They're going to be making their own maps, and then after that is pretty much done, you kind of start with the village, and then dungeons and wilderness, and you know, encounter tables, and you know, and all kinds of everything. You know, old school essentials. Go ahead.
Does the OSC side of the DM's guide have like encounter tables already done for you, like the rule cyclopedia?
Yes. So in
a lot of your work's already done.
So in the monster manuals, there is dungeons, wilderness, and wilderness includes like seafaring, you know. Yeah, I mean it kind of has every environment, and it has all the monsters. The only thing about I think for wilderness, the random tables are pretty rad. Random tables in a dungeon seem kind of, sometimes it doesn't quite make sense. I feel like, you know, a dungeon, not only should there be a logical reason for it, but it's like a little mini ecosystem. I'm not going to get into every little aspect of what eats what and all that kind of shit.
Most people don't.
But I would like all the creatures. Yeah, I would like all the creatures cohabitating to make some kind of sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I think some of the anti dungeon ecology arguments are gross caricatures of what actually it is. You know what I mean? Gary Gygax and Frank Metzer, they never said make sure you put toilets in. You know, they never said that. But there is going to be this natural ecology as like these factions form in the dungeon. But I am also, if you have like that one dungeon that is sort of the entrance to the underworld, then you could have like this weird funhouse, crazy shit, Gonzo stuff happening. But yeah, no, I am.
Yeah, the Gonzo shit happens underground.
Yeah, but I am with you. Like I prefer something that makes a little more sense. So.
Yeah, maybe do your own thing and use maps and things from other worlds if needed. I am a shameless map stealer. I will shamelessly take scenes from movies and reskin them for games so that I have a battle area or whatever. I steal, and I just put new clothes on it. So that will definitely, I mean, and sometimes it's just a map. Sometimes I'll just go find a map somewhere and stock that map, you know. So there will definitely, I'm definitely not doing everything from the ground up. I will cheat. Just think about why they get along or fight each other for territory. Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. I want to give a reason, you know, I think it's Acts where they do the thing where the magicians or the old wizards use the dungeons as monster traps to harvest, you know, organs for experiments, and that's why they're there. I'm kind of want to find something like that, something that gives the dungeon some kind of logical reason for being there. Mega dungeon, if there is one, I know where it is. You know, I don't know when mega dungeons are on. Good DMs create, great DMs steal. I'm fucking great, dude. I am great. I steal all the time. I think I've pretty much gone through all of my thoughts so far on everything. I'm really glad that we had people watching and participating.
Everybody, thank you so much for like joining the conversation about this, because this is like a very cool concept and it's a neat challenge for any game master to take on. I'm looking forward to it on the Discord server. I'm going to put the Discord link once again into chat, if you don't, just for the invite, and hopefully it's working. I have got to find some way to organize the server a little better, but but yeah, please, if you're interested, you're always welcome. Even if you just want to hang out and game with other people or yourself, whatever, feel free to join.
Brian, real quick, Brian, invite Macris on here someday. Man, I don't know how to approach him. I hold him in really high regard as a game designer. And I want to make sure that when I approach him or when Matt approaches him, sometimes you can do things the wrong way and you never get a chance to ask somebody again.
He's gonna be gonna be at Arnicon, and I'm planning on going. Maybe I mean, maybe we try to get him sooner, but yeah, he seems pretty approachable.
If anybody knows him, if anybody
he
knows him,
does seem,
feel free to introduce
he does
us.
seem approachable. I mean, because like he's not.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a bad guy or anything. It's one of those things where, when we invite people on, in my opinion, we want to make friends of the show, and I feel like, Rob is a friend of the show now. He can come on whenever he wants. Give us a call. Same thing for Griff. That conversation really has altered my perspective on the game. And although we went through tonight and talked about all these rules and we used all the, weird language that would probably make him roll his eyes, that whole point is just for communication so that everybody's on the same page. And these are elf games that we play for having fun. And he is a friend of the show. And so I wouldn't, there are certain people both me and Matt would love to talk to, but we are very small fish in a very large stream.
It's a small stream, but there's
but
there's a lot of big fish.
There's a lot of fish bigger than us. So so we'll be working on that. But guys, thanks for being here. One other thing, I got a question earlier. I kind of addressed it, and I said, when does this start? You know what? I would love to be able to say we're going to start this motherfucker next week. But I think that my ambition for this and the fact that I would like to have a number of a fairly large group of players, which means there may always be new players. And I feel like new players should always kind of get your absolute best. This is probably going to be the largest prep project that I've ever done. So 2 weeks. We're starting in 2 now. But the prep process, the actual pencil to paper is going to start pretty soon. There's a few things I'm still kind of working out. Do you ever just pace and think about your game and don't write things down? Yep. I'm in like the final stages of pacing and making sure that I like everything. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So as soon as I have, 8 or 9 stocked dungeons,
you should consider grabbing some modules and just reskinning them. So that'll cut down
there's
your
definitely
work.
some modules. Well, and there's also so many, there's so much free stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's so much free stuff out there that I don't think it's going to be that hard. I think it's going to be separating the really good stuff from the stuff that's bad. Wait, no zero prep? No, sorry, man. Not for this one. Join me in one of my story games and you will see a no prep game. Y'all want to play some Star Wars? That's some no prep shit right there. Let me tell you. Man, we got 2 minutes. You got any shout outs? You got any last words?
Not really, other than I think it's awesome that like you're literally at where I was like a few years ago when I jumped into the OSR. I'm like, there's all this great stuff that you could do, this, that, and the other thing. I really want to make this happen too. So those of you who are part of the server, if you know people that are interested, feel free to invite them. I really want that server to become a gaming server. It used to be my private server during COVID, but it's not private anymore, really. I mean, so if you think they're interested, even if they don't not interested in this, but they want to find people to game with, you're more than welcome to invite them to the server, and we can go from there. And I am always looking for
And there's
recommendations to like organize it better. If there's like a bot you think I should check out, like I want this to be something that all of us can come to in game, because that's the reason why we do this. So
and that's what I wanted to interject, is that there are games going
yeah,
on. It is not just me and Matt on the server running games. There's a traveler game that kicks up occasionally. I know that I'm signed up to play in a Keep on the Borderlands game, I think on the 22nd, and these are guys that I think we've gamed. Matt gives tables to people he's played with that he trusts to be decent game
yeah.
masters. And I want to say you're up to what, like 4 or 5?
Yeah, if so I have some open tables and you could just use, right? But then if you're a show that you're dedicated to running games fairly regularly, like Legacy Game Mastering, aka Magneto, for example, he does a lot of one shots, and you'll like play some obscure game, right? And then my friend Eric, who's running the Traveler game, right? I gave them their own little category, and they can set it up however they want to run the game, their games, whatever it ends up being. So, but that's what we're trying to do. And like I said, I'm always open to suggestions, because I just want to have players. Gary wants to have players. We want to game. This is why we do
That's
this.
the whole reason I'm
I
here.
like to write things. Let's see. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
really I'm a gamer, and that's why I do this. So yeah,
I know how to spell mostly,
you do all
but
right.
I'm
Well,
really
you
here
learned
for the
you learned
players.
anathema today.
I did. Thank you so much, friend. I don't want to say it because I'll say it wrong again, but I know what it is. I really shouldn't try to use words that I know what they mean, but I don't know how to say them. That's Texas coming out. So anyway, hey, thank you guys a lot. I am really anxious to start this. Cloaker, real quick before we leave, you said over prep can be a game killer, and I would agree. But I do think that the general surrounding lands of the starting area, because the players tell you where they want to go, so you need to be ready and you need to be on deck at least for that. So hey, thank you everybody. This is one of those nights where I feel appreciative to you guys in chat, so thank you very much.
Chat was awesome tonight, guys. Thank you so much. I think we're going to stick with this format so everyone can kind of see, and it makes it easier for us to talk to you. So I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but we will be here next week. And like I said, I'll be at Legion of Myth and then here. So it'll be a very long day, but it'll be a good day, because we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff. So check out Legion of Myth as well next week. And until then, I guess our watch is ended. Take it easy, guys.
Brian, you want to meet me on this? You want to meet me on the server and roll up some characters? Gary's Game Table Chat. You know where I'll be, bro.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Dude, get up. I think I heard something.